Now, I want you to get excited about this. The second rut brings you an incredible opportunity that most people miss. It's real. It's 100% real. That's the first point on here. But the second rut brings you a similar level of activity as the first rut. We just don't have as many does coming into estrus then. And what I find though are that a lot of those mature bucks, these are when you really see some random showing up from another property, especially if you have good food, good cover in the area you're hunting. All of a sudden you see these monsters showing up in early December. I saw that in the UP Michigan all the time. Deer are actually migrating, and then all of a sudden they find a pocket of does, and it's just amazing to have this beautiful mature buck from miles away all of a sudden taking up residence for a couple weeks on your property because of the second rut. And that's when these scrapes are popping back up. You get that same level of activity, and you're really hunting it similar to how you'd hunt the rut. And so it is for real. You can count on it. And if you're down in the South, you know, we talk about a lot of these tips and tactics for the South are a little bit different. Deer relate to each other the same. They relate to hunting pressure the same. They relate to food the same. They still eat 5 times in a 24-hour period. They don't like people. They don't like hunters. They don't like pressure. Mature bucks especially. Does are more tolerant pressure. All those things are the same. But what's different is the rut is down in the South, it can be completely random. Deer are not forced to breed within a certain window of time because the fawns are born too early and they die in the snow. If they're born too late, they're not big enough to withstand a winter. So in the North, that rut is very defined. When you get down the South, it's a lot more random. And in that case, you're really looking at individual doe family groups and when they come in, when they don't, and individual pockets of deer that all kind of come in together, islands of cover. It's a lot different in the South. I'm hunting still weather, staying away from the extremities of the weather, especially volatile weather. But still there's opportunity, but it's a lot different. So this is for the, more the northern 2/3 of the country, if you look at it that way, which is a huge number of whitetail states, a big percentage. It is for real. Get excited about it. Plan for it. What's really nice about this, we'll talk when it takes place, but you can really take advantage of some morning and afternoon hunting. Now remember, the rut is an opportunity to hunt morning bedding area stands and afternoon food source stands. Really good opportunity. And you look at over here with the timing of that, you have the primary rut right here. And then you have that secondary rut. And sometimes you even get that third rut over here. But it's at peak where you'll get a little bit of that afternoon and morning movement. And when you see both of those taking place, let's say you have trail cameras out, you start seeing movement in the morning during that time of year, scrapes opening back up, it's pretty evident that the second rut is on because there'll be a pretty big dead period. So these periods right here can be extremely dead if you're expecting rut movement. It's purely food source movement, but that's when it changed. It flips around to when it starts to peak again. You get that AM and PM movements. That's a really sure sign, but that means opportunity because then you can hunt over here in the morning for a certain buck, and then you can hunt over here in the afternoon on a food source for a certain buck. So that gives you more opportunity to actually hunt and hone in on them instead of just forcing it in one stand. Typically, stands are not good for the entire day. They're good for one portion of the day. It's either a bedding area stand that relates to morning or an afternoon stand that relates to morning or that relates to food source. So if you're going to a morning stand, it's a bedding area stand, and you're going in the afternoon, you're likely going to spook some deer out because they're already there. Likewise, if you go to a morning stand and it's on a food source, you're going to spook deer out because they're probably already there. So now you can take advantage of both those sets and have prime time hunting for morning and afternoon. But when it comes to midday, there's not a lot of movement. Why would there be? These bucks are really run down at that point. They're going to take a flurry activity for that rutting activity, but I don't see all day movement that often at all. I'll see a mature buck get to a doe family group, and then he stays there. He's going to breed a certain doe. He's with them for 3 or 4 days. He'll go to the food sources. He'll go back to the bedding areas, bed on the edge, maybe get that doe to a spot he wants her to go to. But bottom line is not a lot of midday movement. So we're taking advantage of 2 different stand sets. We're not counting on all day movement. Great time to rattle. Now, if you're near a bedding area and you're in a Kansas river bottom flat, you're in an area where there's not a lot of pressure, deer haven't been rattled to, called to, picture 2 mature bucks, knockdown, drag out fight this time of year. They're not just tickling and playing. One's mad. Maybe both are mad. They're fighting over a doe. There's not a lot of does. And even you look at opportunity, a lot of states say there's no second rut. And so what they'll do is they just look at the average conception date of 100 does, and they'll say, well, that's the average dates. They don't consider that you can separate those out. These are more towards second. These are more towards first. These 20% are more towards second, 30%, whatever that number is. So some states literally tabulate everything all together. So they'll actually show a later peak rut in some states because they're factoring in the second rut, which changes the average date to a later date. No different than some counties do it differently in different states. So you'll have actual counties. You look at a map and a county map, Georgia comes to mind, we're just full of colors. And they're all over the chart. Like this county is different than this county, and then it's different than this county, and it's different than this county, all right next to each other. But some states are tabulating when the rut comes in differently than other states. You have to know that for a fact, and even go county on a county-wide basis too. So keep that in mind. And that's where you really have to rely on that second rut. And when you plan for it, it gives you a huge amount of opportunity. So when does that take place? Peak rut. It's probably earlier. If anything, it's not later in your state. In Wisconsin, peak rut's 4th through the 6th of November every single year. By the time we get to the 10th, it's starting to slow down. 14th, 17th, that's all but over. Not to say you don't have a flurry of activity on the 19th. Someone will put in the comments below. They'll say, I shot a monster buck that was chasing a doe on the 21st in southern Wisconsin. Well, good for you. You don't want to plan on that, though, because if you plan on doing that and hunting rutting activity on the 21st of November in central Wisconsin, southern Wisconsin, you'll probably be led astray, and you might be better off sitting somewhere else. Because that's the strategy. It's not that you might not see some rutting activity. It's just that you're better off sitting in a different location where you can plan on afternoon food source movement, for example. Maybe mid-morning food source hit next to a bedding area. But if you go in with rut tactics at the wrong time, you could have a lot of wasted sits. Not to say that you're not going to see some rutting activity, but you're better off being more strategic than planning on that and counting on it. So when I say the 4th, 5th around here, and it's going down by the 14th, 17th, again, it's not to say you don't see some rutting activity, but it's all but over. And you're not seeing a lot of activity at all. And when it stops, it slams to a stop because those deer are hungry. The mature bucks are starving. They just burned off a huge percentage of their overall body weight, and they're ready to put it back on. So that means food sources in the afternoon. That means laying low and conserving energy all day. So it's a whole lot different. And I'll say like the 4th around here, 5th peak, 6th peak, and I'm pointing out the peaks. That peak could be the 10th, 12th, 15th in Kentucky, Southeast Ohio, Southern Illinois, maybe over in Kansas. Because now, to figure out the second rut, peak rut is when you have a high percentage of does, not all of them, but a high percentage is coming in and all the bucks get invited to the party. It's that initial bump. That's when the most are coming in. That's at that peak portion right around here, this top of the peak. Now fast forward about a month, and that's that second rut. So that's where around here, by the time we get into early December, late November, we're really looking, and you even look at that lockdown period. So it's pre-rut, does aren't ready. All of a sudden the lockdown, a bunch of flurry of does start coming in. Bucks get on them. Every buck gets one because it's timing by that day. They're all coming in right then. And there'll be some does missed then too, because every buck's already hooked up with one. So around here, end of November to the early December, and then for another week to 10 days, we're really looking at that second rut activity. Again, Kentucky, that might be more like mid-December for you, 10th of December to 20th of December, whatever it is. But again, you're fast forwarding about that time. Take advantage of this golden opportunity. I do all the time. I love this period of time, partly because there's no one else in the woods and we have unpressured food sources and cover. We try to manage that way. It doesn't matter if I'm hunting on public land out in Pennsylvania and we go out there, we're hunting an unpressured area because we walk in a long ways, we get away from people. We look for those open scrape lines, and we see a flurry of activity around that time. We'll actually be hunting through, I think, Dylan, is it the 1st of December, or do you know the dates? We come home, I think, on the 2nd. I think the Monday is it the 2nd.
It's all blurred together at this point in the year.
Oh, I know. Dylan's like here and there, and you've hunted with a lot of different people this year. I mean, besides like Unger and myself, but I mean, like,
Been in the tree with a lot of people. Yeah.
yeah, last weekend with a Reveal crew and some hunt winners down in Ohio. And
Oh, yeah.
let's say, how many states have you been in this year?
Oh boy,
So-
South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the UP, Ohio.
Yeah,
Yeah. More to come. Going to New York on Sunday.
yeah. Yeah, it keeps adding up. But the bottom line is, we'll be down there at that time, and it's right around that time we'll be looking for that activity too. I want to take advantage of it. Again, my favorite time of the year. I hope you can get out. Please don't miss this opportunity. And while you're at it, great time, especially this time, to add some First Light gear. And if you're still watching this video between the 21st of November and the 2nd of December, which you should be, then you can take up to 40% off some of the cold weather gear. I love the thermic. I would say if once I get into cold weather, I'm using my thermic bibs, which are the old Sanctuary bibs, and the Solitude jacket, which is now the Core jacket. I'm using those combinations with the heavy bibs. They come up to here, and then that mid-weight jacket I layer under it. I wear like a furnace hoodie like this with it, or a furnace quarter zip, furnace long johns. Maybe I'll wear a insulated vest. The Source vest is a really good one. It's packable, and I can wear that under my bibs for another layer. But and then I'll wear some actually under my thermos or my furnace hoodie. I'll wear some furnace long john tops too. I just like staying warm. So bottom line is, a lot of good opportunity for layering, up to 40% off in that sale. There's too many items to mention, and I hope you can take advantage of that too, along with the second rut.